Gravity Payments, this is Corinne.
About a year and a half ago, life changed for the 100 employees of Gravity Payments in Seattle when their boss, Dan Price, announced the company's minimum wage would jump to $70,000 a year.
Effective immediately, we're going to put a scaled policy into place, and we're going to have a minimum $70,000 pay rate for everyone that works here.
The hikes would be phased in. A $50,000 a year minimum wage took effect immediately and would rise to $60,000 by the end of 2016 and $70,000 in 2017. Price said he'd help pay for the increases by slashing his own $1 million a year compensation by more than 90% to $70,000.
Curious if anyone has any questions.
Stories of his announcement went viral.
Everyone is getting a raise at a Seattle-based company.
One boss just changed the lives of his employees.
One of 6 kids, homeschooled in an evangelical family in Idaho, Price was a member of a local Christian rock band until he was 16. And that's when, with assistance from his dad, he helped a local coffee house owner with her credit card processing, the fees charged by banks and credit card companies each time her customers used a card.
I was able to get her costs lowered, and it was a good experience for her. All of a sudden, I had a reference.
Price parlayed that reference and a passion for helping small businesses into hundreds of clients and created his company. By his early 20s, he was getting rich, but growing increasingly troubled by what he called extreme income inequality in the United States.
Frankly, the reality was disturbing, but the trend was even more disturbing.
According to the Washington Center for Equitable Growth, the average income of the nation's top 1% of families last year was about $1.4 million, while the average income of the bottom 99% of families was $49,000 a year.
When you create a society that has so much inequality, where the rich and the poor have a divide that's hundreds of times over, to me, the way we were going, everybody was going to be hurt.
All this was happening at a time when the cost of living here in Seattle was skyrocketing. The cost of housing, especially rent, was going up so fast that many medium and lower income families couldn't afford it.
2 years ago, Seattle voters approved gradually raising the local minimum wage from $10 to $15 an hour, the first major American city to do so. A study published in July by the University of Washington found the city's lowest paid workers experienced a significant increase in wages, which is precisely the effect Price wanted for his staff and then some.
Gravity Payments, this is Alyssa.
Alyssa O'Neill, a single mom, used to make $21,000 a year before coming to Gravity Payments. Now she makes almost $60,000 a year as a customer support representative. She's paid off her car loan, credit card debt, and moved into a better home.
It's something I never could have imagined.
Let me see if I can find that for you.
Corinne Ward in customer support used to have a long commute. Now she can afford to live close enough to walk to work.
And I'm able to afford, the cost of living in Seattle, which is incredible.
Many employees told me they now feel secure enough financially to start families.
He's due on October 12th, and he's a male. A boy. Yes.
Typically, the company had 1 or 2 employee pregnancies each year. Now, 7 or 8.
Our daughter, Laylee Rose, and she's 11 weeks old today.
Some proclaim Price the best boss in America. But in protest of the minimum wage policy, some higher-paid employees quit, and a few clients dropped the company's service. Conservative talk show host Rush Limbaugh predicted Price's downfall.
This is pure, unadulterated socialism, which has never worked. That's why I hope this company is a case study in MBA programs on how socialism does not work, because it's going to fail.
Turns out Harvard Business School did study Price for class discussion. It found the $70,000 minimum wage announcement generated not only a flood of job applicants, but many new clients. And as for Limbaugh's prediction about Price's company,
he still has to hold his breath because it hasn't failed. I think on balance, it's prospered.
In fact, Gravity Payments now reports company revenue has grown by 75%, and its number of new clients has risen 67%.
Some of their success might be attributed to increased productivity on the part of the workers now who, feel respected and understand that they're going to have a hard time finding another job that pays so well. But it also has generated a lot of publicity, and that has been good in terms of pulling in business.
Mangoes, peaches, nectarines, cherries. Yes, ma'am.
Clients like Socio's Produce in Seattle's Pike Place Market predict as long as Gravity Payments offers good service and low cost, clients won't care about their high minimum wage.
To me, if they're running their business in a way that their staff feel better about being part of the company, work harder with their customers, to me as a vendor, that's a good thing.
And if you get a sense that these higher wages somehow raise your bill,
then we'll have a conversation.
Well, there was a colleague of mine years ago who taught that our mission at the Harvard Business School ought to be to teach people to make a decent profit decently. There are lots of forces in the world that may overpower that or may make it difficult, but it's nice to see these examples of people who can swim against that tide.
Which may be one reason why Price's employees agreed to buy him a gift.
We had tried to think of a way that we could thank Dan for what he's done for us. And
Little payback.
little payback, yeah.
Customer support representative Alyssa O'Neill got the idea rolling.
We have one more gift for you.
All right.
It's outside, though.
Okay.
So if you wanna...
She convinced the other employees to all chip in, and in July, they bought him a Tesla Model S worth almost $90,000.
Are you kidding me?
No. When it happened, it was like it was meant to be.
Oh my gosh!
I'm really surprised by his reaction.
Thank you.
He said, I don't even want to see the car, I want to see you guys, and turned around and he hugged everybody and made sure he hugged everybody first before getting in the car and touching it.
so you had sort of a crush on this car for a long time and
Yes.
never thought you'd have one?
I thought I would have one day, but you ever have one of those goals where you say like 3 years or 2 years, but it never becomes 1 year, it's always 3 years, and 3 years goes by and it's still 3 years? It was kind of one of those deals.
Since his promise of a $70,000 a year minimum wage, higher profile companies like Starbucks and Walmart have raised their minimum wage too, though none nearly as much.
If there is an ethic, what is it?
I think it's what's your purpose, and a business is really missing its potential if it sees its purpose as creating money. It should have some larger purpose. I think it's a recipe for a better life and more success in business.
Price says for now he wants to live modestly, grow his company for his clients and employees, and see to what degree other companies follow suit.
The truth is, I'm still trying to figure all this out.
Yeah.
So
and we're sitting inside a Tesla.
And we're sitting inside a Tesla, and I'm doing my best to try to deconstruct, what I think here as a 32-year-old guy who has a lot more to learn. I thought I'd share a story that you haven't heard. In 2008, Gravity had about 50 employees. And the way the company had been built from that point was we would get to about $2,500 or $3,000 into the black, and we'd hire somebody. At the time, we paid $24,000 a year, no benefits, and we'd go to zero. Then we would get back to $2,500 or $3,000 into the black, we'd hire somebody, and we'd go to zero. And that was pretty much how the company had been built to that point, but it was an amazing, wonderful experience for me because I was working with independent business owners who were risking everything and putting real skin in the game to be able to make a tangible difference in their communities and provide something really special. And I thought, wow, my life is so good, and I can just keep doing this the rest of my career and be happy. And it worked in 2004, and it worked in 2005, and it worked in 2006, and it worked in 2007. Ooh. In what felt like an overnight occurrence, we lost 20% of our revenue. And the environment at the time in our industry was threefold. Cut back your services to your clients, do a 10 to 30% layoff, and do a 10 to 30% price increase on these independent businesses, many of whom had it much harder than we did. Most of whom had it much harder than we did or anybody in our industry. And the occasion was a company party. I'm never going to make this mistake again, but we started serving drinks before I gave my speech that day. And about half the people in the company are like me. They like being in the mountains better than reading the news. And so they didn't really know what was going on, and they were asking for raises every day. The other half the people in the company, they were so scared because they knew for sure that the shoe was going to drop and they were going to get laid off and lose their job in a historically bad time to be unemployed, and they were going to be left with nothing. Whew. Where do I turn? If we follow suit with the rest of the industry, the dream that built the company would be dead in a second. If we don't, the company will most likely fail. And I'm on stage trying to figure out how to synthesize these things for our group and how to bring us together. And I muster up the courage to say that we're not going to do layoffs. We're not going to do pay or benefits cuts. We're not going to cut the services to our small business owners that we literally owe the company to. And we're certainly not going to do a meaningful price increase on them without them having any option to decline it, which is how it works in my industry, at a time when they can perhaps even less afford it than we can. So we got together and we said, we're not going to do this. We are going to just go out of business if we need to. I looked at the bank account and I shared with everybody that we had 7 months on our current loss rate before we would have to close our doors. But if we could grow at our top growth rate, at our top productivity rate that we'd ever had as a company, and we could hold expenses in a relatively flat manner, in 5 months we could get back to a break even. And we got there in 4 months. We made it. It was scary. I would lay in bed at night and think, I'm going to lose everything. This company is not going to exist. This product, this service, these relationships with these clients, they're all going to go away. And that's going to be totally fine. Because that experience of risk and loss and sticking up for what I believe in is going to help me and everybody in this company for the rest of our lives and the rest of our careers. And we can help each other recover. And we can try to spend time creating documentation, creating tools and resources for our clients when they go back out there in the world of our competitors like First Data, who was owned by KKR for 12 years. For those of you who don't know, a leveraged buyout firm that buys companies with 80% debt and then squeezes them at every place possible for all that they're worth. We're going to create some documentation and tools so that when our merchants go back into that environment, when our small business owners go back into that environment, they'll be okay. And we're going to use our own death as an example of what we believe in and try to make the world a better place. I don't know if any of that's true, but that's what I told myself to go to sleep. The problem is that there's a lot of marketing spin out there. I've been accused, probably more than almost anybody in the planet, of marketing spin from what you've just seen. Well, I know it wasn't marketing spin for Alyssa, but it's still a fair point. And that's still the cynical environment that every single person in this room has to operate in every day when you are going to work trying to make the world a better place. What do we need to know that it's not marketing spin? Anyone have an answer? Just yell it up. Results? I like that. Good, bad, and ugly. Transparency, kind of. Yeah. Trust. Engagement. What? A soul. Well, there's no chance of that. Commitment. How can you show those things? Risk. Sacrifice. I grew up reading Stephen Covey in my conservative Christian family. Think win-win. Everything gets better. The way I'm going to help you is to pay myself more. It's a win-win. We don't believe that. You know, I grew up, I literally memorized the 7 Habits when I was 6 years old, so maybe I believe it, but most people don't believe it. And how we overcome that is through risk and uncertainty and sacrifice. So it's okay to believe in something. It's okay to want to make a change. But the amount of risk and sacrifice that you put into it, what are you willing to lose? What are you willing to risk? That determines, in many situations, your ability to change something. And I can tell you that by the time we did 70K in 2015, the rest of the world maybe thought we were crazy, but we had been through many circumstances together like we had been through in 2008. And that canvas that we had some grit to it that was helpful for us. And so what I would love is for everybody in this room to maybe just take a moment quietly and think about what's something that you care about enough to risk for, to sacrifice for. There's some things that I'm pretty sure we all care about. We all care about our time. We all care about our financial resources to various degrees. We all care about our freedom and flexibility and all these things. These are the things that we have in common. But what is it that you care enough about to sacrifice in those areas? I'm just going to give us a minute to think about that. I'm going to re-examine myself. What do I think? Now I want to know, what's the most important, precious thing to you that you would be willing to risk or sacrifice? This is the hard part, folks. Okay, this is the extremely hard part. Is there anybody that would be willing to stand up and share their, just stand up if you got.
It's my role to go first in life.
Yes, what's your name?
Lisa.
Lisa, and where are you from?
I'm from Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. Thank you for standing up, Lisa.
Sure. Family.
You care about family.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you willing to sacrifice or risk?
My life.
Your life. Wow. That's a pretty good one, Lisa. Thank you. How many people in here feel similar to Lisa? Yeah, I like that. Now I want to ask, does anyone have examples that are either economic or professional examples? And maybe they weren't the first ones that came to your mind. Maybe I'll give everybody 20, 30 seconds to think about economic or professional examples. Yes, what's your name?
Hi, my name is Morning Rita.
Morning, nice to meet you. Where are you from?
Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville, oh nice.
Yeah.
I love, Nashville's a great place.
Nashville.
Yeah.
Got a Nashville group.
Yeah. I love DC too. I do.
But Nashville.
Nashville, yeah, but Nashville, come on.
So the first one that came to my mind was family, but I was trying to think outside of the box.
Yeah.
And the first thing that came to my mind is I don't want to sacrifice being able to be who I am and express my individuality, and I would give anything up for that.
I love that. So that's what you want to preserve. And do you have anything in mind that you would sacrifice that most people want in terms of money or fame or power? Or
I would sacrifice everything.
Everything for that, yeah. That's so beautiful. Thank you. So there's some problems that I'm aware of. I could be wrong, but I feel like I'm aware of them. One is, I'm not going to go into, but apparently our top scientists are telling us that in 10 years, there are environmental problems that will become irreversible. That seems like a rather large problem to me. And then number two, and the one that I'm going to talk about more, 90%, almost 90% of all new wealth every year is accruing to the top 1%. And a huge percentage of that, I haven't found a statistic on it, but I know anecdotally that it's a big percentage, is going to the top 1% of the top 1%. This consolidation of wealth and power is actually affecting me and my clients every day. One example, we serve a lot of veterinarians, and they used to sell to their practice when they retired to their junior associate. But there's so much money out there that's investable that's going, and it's just flooding the market with private equity firms, leveraged buyout firms, hedge funds, all these stacks of financial engineering that are flooding these different industries, and something as old as veterinary medicine can't escape it because the private equity funded roll-ups will pay double upfront what the junior associate can afford over a 10 or 15-year buyout. And so they're being rolled up, and you lose the independence, you lose the business. But that's like a niche example. I think that the broader example is that the principles that this country was founded on was, among other things, that it is self-evident that we are all created equal. And given the prominence of business and money in our world, The dream, the aspiration, I'm not going to pretend we were ever in a situation where that was true, where we were all created equal. But what I am going to say is, or where we acknowledged it, of course I believe it's true, but I don't think that we really fully embraced it. But what I'm going to say is that if 90% of the wealth is accruing to the top 1%, and close to a huge percentage, maybe 90% of that is the top 1% of that, I don't think that that dream that we've been trying to march toward for decades, I don't think we keep going in that direction. You all represent a lot of big companies, some of you. You represent some of the most powerful companies on the planet at a time when corporations have historically high power. And you all are extremely smart, extremely valuable people to those companies at a time when top-tier talent has an extraordinary amount of power over the companies where that top-tier talent works. And the people in this room represent that. You're in a position to risk all that for something you care about. And I don't know, there's various strategies around risk tolerance. There's a book that I could recommend called The Obstacle is the Way, and there's another by Ryan Holiday. There's another book I could recommend for those that are interested called Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb. So there's various strategies that you can set yourself up for risk. But I would be so happy, because you're going to hear so many different strategies and brilliant ideas that you heard yesterday and today and throughout this conference and throughout your life. And deep down, you already know the things that matter the most when you hear them. Maybe it's a reminder, but you already know. What I would love is if you could think of something big enough that you want to see changed within your company. Something bold enough, something ambitious enough that you would be willing to, not that you have to necessarily, but you'd be willing to risk and sacrifice your position in that company or your position in your career right now to make that happen. And I know that sounds crazy because family, right, is a big thing. And people in this room are, among other things, during the day, the rest of their life, zooming back, you are, providers of resources. So that's a profound risk. And I like how high that bar is, because it means that the thing you have to think about, that you care about, also has to be at the top of the heap for you. So, I kind of want to ask if anybody has any ideas, but I'm worried I'll get skunked. Or maybe you're not allowed to share it. Maybe if anyone has anything that they'd like to share, can you stand up? If not, no problem. Yes. Let's give her a round of applause. What's your name and where are you from?
So Michelle Clements, I'm from Seattle University, so I'm in your hometown.
Yeah, nice.
I was the chief HR leader at REI for 12 years, and at REI we were one of the companies in the country to take all of our employees up to a minimum wage of $15 an hour.
Woo!
I moved to academia 2.5 years ago, and the first thing they do in academia is they freeze wages. And in academia, you don't make market wages. And so it had been a practice every year to meet their budgets to freeze wages, because none of the deans, we have 8 colleges and universities, none of the deans wanted to cut their programs. So the way to meet budget historically in academia, and I can speak for, I've now been in it long enough where I've benchmarked this across academia, the first place they go is to freeze wages.
Right.
So for me, the fight has been to bring the data in and to show that we're in the business of talent and that our business is not education. Our business is the great faculty and staff that we hire who create the great education. And I'm proud to say that the 2 years that I've been in my role, we have budgeted a 2.5% merit increase in a time where we were in a budget deficit. And it's fighting the fight with data.
Cool, thank you. Seattle making me proud. What's your name?
I'm Latasha, and
Latasha.
I'm in Seattle as well. So thank you for this reflective period, and it sent me back to the reason why I became an HR professional, because I started out my career in sales and marketing. And I became an HR professional simply to help others see their potential. So the challenge or the scary thing that I face in my profession, in my role, as well as my organization is transparency on a lot of levels, but we need transparency. And the thing that I'm willing to risk is the security, which is really scary.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Latasha. Woo! That's so beautiful. I'm inspired by, how much risk and uncertainty and change really affects us at a deep level, and that you found something that you're willing to work through that for in that transparency. That's great. Who else? Oh. Yeah. What's your name, sir?
Hank Jonas from Corning Incorporated in Corning, New York.
Hank, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Where's Corning?
Way upstate.
Okay.
It's about 4.5 hours from the city, south of Rochester.
Cool.
Beautiful Finger Lakes.
Yeah, thanks for standing up.
Corning, is over 165 years old. Conservative company in some ways, but we experimented a number of years ago, and I actually had the pleasure of running this program, which was called goal sharing. It was our version of gain sharing. And we implemented that 30 years ago, all the way down to the shop floor. So it's a variable pay program based on target goals that you set. You continuously improve in order to get future payouts, but everybody participates because we felt it was important that we're all in this team, we're all together. I'm not sure we would implement that today. So, I used to work in the compensation group. I have a lot of friends there. I think we need to improve on that program. I think companies have to look at their bonus programs and how they're done. And you have to start with the compensation people. I used to have a colleague in my group, or in the compensation group, and we had an office right next to each other. And on any given day, I was either a socialist or a communist. And that's because he would say to me, Hank, how do we do with goal sharing? And I'd say, Tom, it's a great year. We're going to pay out $50 million this year in goal sharing bonuses to everyone all the way down. He said, what a waste. I said, what? Well, you should give it to me. He was the executive comp guy. Wow. Because we could then give it to those people who really made the difference.
Yeah.
He's no longer with us.
Wow.
And I'm still here. But I think I would sacrifice going to our comp group, and I've been talking about this with some colleagues and saying, not only do we need to improve that program, because I think it's a good program, maybe up it a little bit, because it's a 5% target, 10% opportunity. We haven't changed it in 25 years. But we should be out there encouraging other companies to do the same damn thing. So
wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would actually love to hear more about that offline sometime. I think that sounds like a really great program. I'd love to share that with people. Okay, so maybe everyone I have 15 minutes till they drag me off stage here. and I like to have as much interaction as possible. But maybe let's just take 1 minute, and if you thought of one, something professionally that you, and I'm not going to make everyone share it, but something professionally that you want to see happen out there in the world, something related to business or economics or people and culture or HR or compensation, and something that you would be willing to sacrifice or risk. Maybe not sacrifice, but at least risk. I'm willing to put myself in a vulnerable, uncertain situation where I could lose this thing that is precious to me, that could cause me to have to scramble. I want everybody to write those two down. You can use your phone, you can use a piece of paper. If you don't have one, you don't have to write anything down. You can just check your social media, Twitter, all that. You can look me up, follow me, Dan Price Seattle. All right, I'll be quiet now. Okay. If you thought of something, I'm not going to ask you to share it, but if you thought of something that you really care about, that you're willing to sacrifice for, and you thought of something that scares the crap out of you to risk or sacrifice, that you'd be willing to. Hopefully you don't have to, but at least you're willing to put that level of skin in the game. If you have something, I'd love to have you stand up, just so I can see. You don't have to share it. Just, if you got something, I just want to have everybody give you a round of applause once you all stand up. That's it. I'd love to have you email me. My email's just, they have one, dp@gravitypayments.com or dan@gravitypayments.com. But I'd love to have you email me, just hear about it. That's not like that's just my email. It's not a weird like marketing thing or anything. Yet. All right, I have 10 minutes, and I would love to answer any questions y'all might have or hear some people tell me that I'm full of crap and all that. So who's got a question? Yes. What's your name?
Good morning. Oh, good morning. I am Jackie Welch.
Hey, Jackie.
Good morning.
Where are you from?
That's a long, convoluted story. So I live in Northern Virginia.
Northern Virginia.
Yes, sir.
Cool.
I would like to know, after making such a fundamental shift in how you're thinking about equity, what has that done to your turnover? Is Alyssa still there? When people leave, why do they leave?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So we benchmark off of, we're in Seattle. Who do we benchmark off of? Amazon. They're like right next door to everybody in Seattle. Does anyone know what their corporate like turnover rate is for like their kind of like, you know, first few layers of like corporate jobs? Yeah, what is it? People might know. I hear big numbers thrown out, you know, and I know there's maybe some fuzziness to those numbers, but you hear all the time 30, 40, 50% in that group. And if you're here from Amazon, welcome. Maybe call me later. We were kind of inching up in that direction, and I think we were probably around inching up to like 30–35%, but maybe inching's understating it. We were actually climbing up relatively rapidly as we were getting to this pool, and you know, Amazon's had a profound effect on Seattle, where I live. It really has. It really can't be overstated. And it went down to like about 20% after 70K. Alyssa's still there. Corinne, the other woman featured there, she has been promoted like 3 times since this video is produced, and she's got a big team. So, you know, we're finding some diamonds in the rough. I think, you know, when you're hiring, it's tough, right? And it's very subjective, and so we try to grab onto objective things like degrees and things like that. But turns out those objective things don't actually matter at all for performance, or not very much, in my opinion. That's been my experience. And so, we've been able to find those people like Alyssa, like Corinne, who actually can stick around and develop at gravity so that we're not losing our talent. And it's a different model because it's a little bit less of like a, hey, I'm like scratching and clawing to like climb the ladder, and it's a little bit more like, hey, I'm actually here, I'm doing well, I have a great job, how can I expand that, how can I do more? So it shifts the mentality, it shifts the desperation element of it. Baby boomers don't like it, sorry for any baby boomers. It seems like most people in here are younger than that, but anyway, next question. Thank you. What's your name, sir?
I'm Ryan. I'm from
Ryan.
Atlanta.
Can you point the mic like up as
Try
far
to
as
a
it
little
goes?
bit.
Yeah.
Ryan from Atlanta.
Great. Nice to see you, Ryan.
Question. During the video, and talking about your journey, I saw that at one point you cut your salary from 1.1 million to 70,000.
Yep.
So I'd love to know sort of what was the turning point for you, and tell us a little bit more personally, like what was the trigger for you that said, you know, I'm making this much and my people are making this much. What do I need to do differently?
So Ryan, thank you for your question. You cut right through all the BS straight to my heart on that one. I was in love with a woman, and her name is Valerie, and she served in the military for 11 years. She was enlisted in the Army. She is from a tiny town in Texas, and she is the quintessential Lone Ranger. And she's not somebody that wants any help from anybody. She's very committed to that. She's got that Texas grit to her. And she's also, so her and I, we got along great. We loved the same things. We did a 26-mile, 15,000-foot hike together, the North Shore of Kauai. For anybody that's been there, we hiked to Kalalau Beach and back with the waterfall extender, 26 miles. Her pack was heavier than mine, and she was like, come on, Dan, keep up. So she's a pretty amazing person, and somebody I really look up to. And she served in the Army for 11 years. She works like 60 hours a week. I mean, she's like everything that everyone would think of as like top person that you would want professionally. And we were going on a hike one day, and we had since broken up, but we're still good friends today. And at this time, we were still good friends like we are today. And she's my hiking partner. We're going up the hike. And I had this vague idea that maybe like our power distance that created from our different economic circumstances was somewhat interfering with our ability to find intimacy together. And so I don't know if that's true, but I had this vague idea of it like 2 years later, and I'm going up this hike with her, and she explains to me how a $200 rent increase is making it so she can't pay the bills anymore. How am I feeling in that moment? Just shout it out. Guilty and angry, right? Who am I angry at? The system, her boss, all these people. And then I'm like, oh, shoot. I realize a very unfortunate truth, which is Valerie was making about $5,000 more than a third of the people that work at my company. And that was the turning point for me. At the top of the mountain, Mount Si in Seattle, Washington, which I never do. But it was like a rainy Wednesday, and it's like a very well-carved path, so it seemed like a good option. And Valerie, she told me that story, and I told her at the top of the mountain that I was going to implement a $70,000 minimum wage at Gravity. Later, on the TV show The Daily Show, which was one of my favorite shows when I was in like a teenager and in college and stuff, the host of The Daily Show on that show asked me, "Do you think maybe you should have come down from the mountain before you made that decision?" I think the elevation might have been affecting your cognitive ability. Good point. What's your name, miss?
Hi, my name is Brigitte.
What is it?
Brigitte.
Brigitte,
Yes.
nice to meet you, Brigitte.
Nice to meet you, and thank you. I think Valerie she sounds amazing.
She's great.
Yeah. So I wanted to share a commitment I just made to myself here in the room. It's not a big one, but the thing I was thinking about when you asked what would you sacrifice for something, I was thinking about education and helping others to get education. Because when I moved to the United States 7 years ago, I took it for granted. I come from Belgium, and education is free there, so it's for everyone. And when I came here, and I've learned how hard it is in the United States, and it's not granted at all. And actually, I started my career as a high school teacher, so I just committed to myself that I'm going to give up some of my precious time to help others educate. I'm not going to give my salary away for it, I'm sorry, but I am going to give some time away. So I'll be honest about that. So that was my commitment.
Thank you. Thank you, Brigitte.
I do have a question too.
Pardon?
So you don't look like my CEO. You don't sound like my CEO.
Really?
So I'm just wondering, like you don't come across as a typical CEO, if that's fair to say. So I'm wondering, how do you spend your day, and where do you put your priorities?
Oh, great question. Thank you, Brigitte. That changes so quickly that it's kind of dizzying for me. But so one thing that makes it easier for me, we have about 200 people at Gravity. So I know most of you are part of organizations of thousands of people, and I realize that there's a lot of differences there. But I wonder if some of the principles might be helpful to you. How I personally spend my day, my essential jobs as a CEO are, number one, cash. Cash, cash, cash. Like, we have to be able to pay our bills, and we have great financial people. Like, we don't have a CFO at this point, but if we had a CFO, it wouldn't matter. I would still feel the same way. Cash every day, thinking about cash, thinking about different scenarios that would threaten our cash position, and game planning for those scenarios. A day out, a week out, a month out, a quarter out, a year out, 3 years out, 5 years out, 10 years out. Like, how is the cash going to work? How are we going to be able to pay our bills and make payroll and all those kind of things? That's the number one thing I think about. That sounds like a very detailed thing. It is. But I just, as a CEO, I need to be inside of that conversation with myself every single day. Recruiting and coaching the executive team. We said up until maybe 5 years ago that we didn't have a single executive at Gravity, myself included. But that's changed because we went from having 100 and 150 people to now 200 people, and the level of communication and organization and clarity needed is increasing dramatically once we cross those social scientist thresholds where you don't know each other anymore. And so thinking through that and like finding a way to provide clarity and recruiting and coaching the executive team. There are some people that are maybe serving in that role but aren't quite there, so like helping to lift them up. We have Probably relative to a lot of companies represented here, we have very constrained resources. You have expectations. Those are your constrained resources. You have Wall Street and investors and debts to pay and all that. But we actually just don't have it, different than you. So, you know, if we want to fill out our whole team that we would need, we literally would like go out of business the next day because we'd run out of money. So figuring out the right combination of like lifting those people up in collaboration with the other people on the team. And I'm out of time, but I would love to, you know, talk to some more of you afterwards. So sorry about running out of time. Sorry. Sorry, Kevin. But anyway, I could go on with a longer answer, but because I'm out of time, I think you're getting a sense for it. I had a guardian angel that came to me after 70K. It's a woman named Tammy Kroll, and we were competing for her services against Facebook and PayPal and Gravity, and she liked living in California and she didn't want to move to Seattle, and the amount of compensation that we were able to offer her was literally 10 to 15% of what PayPal and Facebook were offering, and she moved her family from California to Seattle into the rain, and she has really, you know, been my partner ever since that. She sent me a LinkedIn message after the 70K thing. She's been a chief technology officer. She's been a technology executive for 20 years. Our director of engineering came from Starbucks. She's phenomenal. She sent me a LinkedIn message because she likes what we're doing. These are the rewards for the risk and putting your skin in the game. These are unicorn hires. Like, how do you find these people, right? You cannot pay enough to find these people. They are true unicorns. But what I want to leave you with this. Number one, I'd love to stay in touch, so social media or email, either way. I'll do my best. I can't always respond to everything, but I try. Please send me what you're planning on doing. Please keep me in the loop on how that goes. My vision is to be a tiny speck of sand in a revolution where business ceases to be about money and power and is about making a difference. That shift is going to happen with or without me, and I want to accelerate it and be as big a part of it as I can. And what I'm willing to sacrifice is I'm not going to ever be the unicorn, multi-billion-dollar Silicon Valley CEO. And I truly think that I'm capable from a talent perspective of going and doing that. And I'm going to sacrifice that because I don't think that's the thing that would serve the mission. But I still wake up some days and I think, wow, that person just made $1 billion. And I'm friends with them. And I could do it, but as much as that's a tough sacrifice for my ego, the thing that I'm doing is the thing that is going to make me happy and healthy and feed my soul and give me sustainability for the people I love for the rest of my life. So, thanks for having me.